On January 10th of 2018, Blaze Bernstein's body was discovered in a shallow grave in Borrego Park, California. Blaze had been brutally stabbed multiple times in the face and neck by someone he trusted, his former high school classmate, Sam Woodward. Unfortunately for Blaze, this late-night meetup was meant to be casual, but it ended in tragedy, and it would take a total of 6.5 years to convict his assailant. Over the coming years after his death, Blaze's grieving family and the Southern California community would work tirelessly to put together the shocking details of his termination, uncovering a spine-chilling web of hate and betrayal that led to his untimely death. For reference, Pennsylvania is one of the few states where body cam footage is not considered a public record, and Sam Woodward's trials and testimonies in court do not provide much valuable information either, which makes a pretty complicated case for an outsider. We are about to present written records and stories of many people surrounding the victim and the perpetrator, and as we connect the dots, you will find out how everything came together to result in a brutal crime. Because nothing is as simple as it sounds when it comes to the minds of criminals. Sam Woodward grew up in a quiet suburb of Southern California, surrounded by neatly trimmed lawns and picket fences. Born to middle-class parents, his childhood seemed unremarkable at first glance. He was raised alongside his protective older brother and a stern father. Sam's mother, Michelle Woodward, also admitted that the boy had been troubled ever since childhood. It all started with small things, such as him not liking the way t-shirts felt on his neck, and his shoes had to be tied just right. On top of all these little things bothering Sam, he couldn't quite fit into school either. Starting off with kindergarten, his teacher always had complaints about Sam getting into arguments with his peers. By third grade, complaints were kicking in about Sam being unable to control his anger and frustration. And when Michelle saw her son sitting alone on a bus during a science camp trip in 5th grade, she fully realized her son's social troubles. Sam had always been deeply curious, with particular fixations that developed from a young age. Among his interests, his fascination with historical events, especially World War II, stood out. This keen interest even earned him a history award during his school years. From an early age, Sam exhibited a reserved and introspective nature. He often spent hours immersed in reading or sketching, preferring solitude over socializing. Making friends didn't come easily to him, and his introverted demeanor occasionally made him a target for bullying during his middle school years. This sense of isolation left Sam feeling out of place, as if he didn't quite belong in the world around him. In high school, Sam's academic performance was uneven. While he demonstrated intelligence, a lack of motivation and frequent absences hinted at a growing sense of disconnection from his surroundings. Sam officially became a student at the Orange County School of the Arts, but his time there was short-lived. During his junior year, his father withdrew him from school following concerns raised about comments Sam made that were perceived as being insensitive toward the LGBTQ+ community. Following this, Sam finished his junior and senior years at Corona Del Mar High School, where his academic performance remained average. After high school, he briefly attended California State University Channel Islands, where he spent 2 semesters before leaving. He found solace in online communities where he could express his frustrations and connect with like-minded individuals. These virtual friendships became his primary source of social interaction, offering him a sense of belonging he had never experienced in real life. Upbringing. The Woodward family held deeply traditional values, with Sam's father having firm views on politics, religion, and what he considered the right way to live. These beliefs were passed down to his children. The family attended church every Sunday, where the sermons often focused on traditional family roles, patriotism, and moral responsibility. Michelle shared that Sam and her husband had engaged in intense physical disagreements in the past when asked about conflict. Blake Woodward, Sam's father, held the belief that homosexuality was morally wrong, and Sam's brother, Clay, had sometimes been confrontational about it. Overall, the Woodward family was devoutly religious, taking their Catholic faith and church attendance seriously. They even decided to avoid the Harry Potter series, viewing it as promoting witchcraft and ideas they disagreed with. At family dinners, the conversation often centered around preserving their way of life and maintaining their values. Sam was raised to be cautious of new or different perspectives and was taught to view the world in terms of us versus them, which fostered a sense of division and apprehension in his mind. While Sam's mother encouraged understanding and compassion, her voice often struggled to be heard over her husband's more rigid beliefs, creating a constant tension within the home. As a result, Sam grew up with a mix of conservative values and emotional complexity, shaped by these conflicting influences. Involvement with fringe groups. As Sam entered adulthood, he began feeling increasingly dissatisfied with life. After his first year of college, he dropped out, feeling disconnected and lacking a sense of direction. He spent a lot of time online, scrolling through forums where others shared similar frustrations, many also struggling to find their place in the world. It was here that Sam first encountered controversial and extreme viewpoints. What started as a simple curiosity soon turned into an obsession. Sam found a community that seemed to validate his feelings of anger and confusion, offering him a sense of purpose. These groups presented a narrative that placed blame on societal changes and certain communities, giving Sam a framework for his frustrations. For the first time, he felt understood and accepted. Gradually, Sam began attending meetings and rallies hosted by these groups. Their messages, which promised a return to a supposed lost identity, appealed to him. He was drawn to the strong sense of belonging and the idea of standing up for something bigger than himself. It gave him a sense of value he hadn't experienced before. As time went on, Sam became more deeply involved. He started advocating for the group, participating in their activities, and sharing their ideas with others. His increasing commitment led him to distance himself from his family, who did not support his newfound beliefs. Sam became entrenched in the group's ideology, fully immersed in their worldview. This period of Sam's life would eventually lead him down a troubling path, culminating in actions that would have serious consequences for his future and the well-being of others. His story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of extreme ideologies and the potential impact they can have on individuals and their communities. The birth of Atomwaffen. Sam is a significant figure in this context. In 2015, Atomwaffen emerged, a group that contributed to the rise of extremist ideologies gaining wider attention. By 2017, the group had been connected to several violent incidents, and their online communications were filled with hateful rhetoric targeting various communities, including Jewish and LGBTQ+ individuals. Blaze was affected by these issues in multiple ways. The case takes on a deeply personal tone as more details emerge about Sam and Blaze. Their connection in high school was brief, with little interaction just a few years ago. However, a series of unexpected events lead to them crossing paths one late night, resulting in an incident where one is alleged to have been attacked with a knife 19 times. The scene, with blood on the car's roof, is chilling. Sam seems almost resigned to being caught, presenting an alibi that raises questions. He has a knife with Blaze's blood found in his room and claims to have last seen Blaze at Borrego Park, where his body is later discovered. Sam pleaded not guilty. During the hearing, he nervously glanced at the door, and his face showed signs of discomfort when his parents entered. The moment is not one of reassurance or connection, but rather a feeling of unease. His lawyer presented a narrative to the media, stating that Sam struggled with depression and guilt over his family situation, spending his time reading the Bible in jail in an effort to find redemption. However, accounts from those who knew him painted a different picture, revealing a more complex reality. Sam's online activity and testimonies ultimately played a key role in his conviction. As investigators dove deeper into Sam's background, they uncovered a man drawn to ideologies centered on validation and identity. He perceived himself as part of something larger, something he believed to be significant and transformative. To gain acceptance within this group, he relied on his race and a shared sense of animosity. Far from being a hidden group, extremists are visible and actively seek to recruit young individuals like Sam. The story of a person who was once associated with extremist views being exposed for their true identity might offer some sense of closure. However, as interviews with those who knew Sam are explored, court documents reviewed, and thousands of pages of his online messages analyzed, a more intricate and layered narrative emerges. This is a story shaped by feelings of alienation, high school struggles, and underlying fears. A far more complex and tragic tale than initially imagined. What seemed like a simple account of radicalization unfolds as a deeply personal journey marked by isolation and confusion. Rumors at OCSA. The whispers that Sam Woodward may have had an interest in boys had circulated at Orange County School of the Arts, OCSA, but the rumors take on new significance after the murder. The rumors about Sam's interest in boys had always been a part of OCSA's gossip. A classmate, who is referred to as Jared in the news report by Mother Jones, recounts how Sam once made a pass at him, adding fuel to the fire. "It was hot gossip," Lily Williams, Blaze's best friend at OCSA, told the reporter. "Like, isn't it hilarious?" OCSA is a highly selective public charter school located in one of California's wealthiest areas. Known for its artsy, progressive culture, it is a place where students are expected to fit into a particular mold. Sam, however, never fit in. A conservative from a devout Catholic family, he stood out like a sore thumb. He developed a bold, rebellious persona, often seeming to take satisfaction in challenging the norms and creating discomfort among his classmates and teachers. In one graphic design class, he showcased a Confederate flag he had drawn. For a music project, he selected Johnny Cash's powerful cover of 9 Inch Nails' Hurt, a song reflecting themes of emotional pain and inner turmoil. Sam didn't appear to make an effort to conform or connect with others. "Every high school has that kid who is just off," Sean Corfield, who knew Sam at the time, says. "If there was ever going to be a shooting, he'd be the guy." Sam hadn't discussed his thoughts on identity with Jared while they were at school, but one day, out of the blue, he reached out. Jared later shared, "He was asking a lot about my identity and wanted to understand more. It really surprised me, especially considering how he had expressed views that were the complete opposite of mine." Jared had been openly gay since 6th grade. Outgoing and friendly, he had become the head of the school's gay-straight alliance. Now attending Northeastern University in Boston and working at a law firm, he still reflects on his time at OCSA and his interactions with Sam. "He asked about how I came out, how I knew I was gay, and other personal questions," Jared recalled thoughtfully. It seemed like he was trying to understand something about himself that he hadn't been able to put into words. Sam continued to send Jared messages that seemed to reveal an inner search for understanding. It became clear that Sam was seeking something, trying to define his own identity in a way that appeared elusive, struggling to make sense of his feelings and place in the world. When Sam reached out to Jared, suggesting they meet in person, Jared felt increasingly uncomfortable. Sam, who had always presented a conservative and reserved image, seemed to blur the lines between seeking understanding and suggesting a more personal connection. This left Jared feeling confused and unsure, especially considering that Sam had never expressed openness about his true feelings before. Jared ultimately cut ties with Sam by the time they reached 10th grade, feeling uneasy about how the situation had escalated. From that point on, they never communicated again. However, Jared, unable to keep the interaction to himself, confided in Blaze and another friend. Though he never intended to out Sam, the details of their conversations began circulating, and by the time Sam transferred out of OCSA during his junior year, the rumors had already spread. In the years that followed, Sam reinvented himself. He graduated from Corona del Mar High School and earned the status of Eagle Scout, but his life increasingly revolved around the internet. Politically, Sam described himself as a confused conservative libertarian and sought refuge in online communities. One of the platforms he frequented was iFunny, a photo-sharing app where he adopted the alias Saboteur. Sam and Bill. Sam first encountered Bill on iFunny, a teenager whose views would shape Sam's political perspective. Bill, once an avid sports fan and now more introverted, had become deeply interested in the works of Nietzsche and Italian philosopher Julius Evola. By 2013, Bill's posts on societal issues and the perceived decline of Western culture gained attention in iFunny's more politically conservative communities. Although many of his followers didn't engage deeply with the books he referenced, they began to see him as a leading voice on these topics. As his influence grew, Bill became the leader of several online communities, such as Youths Against Modernity, where discussions often revolved around memes, societal frustrations, and the challenges facing certain groups. He gradually became the central figure within iFunny's more ideologically aligned circles, though he frequently downplayed his leadership role. As Sam became more immersed in online communities, he found comfort in the simplicity of certain ideologies that seemed to offer a sense of validation. The platform became a space where he, like many others, searched for an identity that promised belonging and purpose. The group's messages, often dismissive of progressive views and critical of societal changes, provided an outlet for their frustrations. While Sam's involvement on iFunny wasn't particularly deep or philosophical, the platform gave him a sense of connection, much like it did for others. He embraced a new identity, finding solace in the camaraderie and approval of individuals with similar perspectives. For Sam, iFunny became more than just an app. It was a place where he could share his evolving beliefs and interact with others who held similar views. For Bill, his journey toward a more religious path and his attendance at a Christian college gradually led him to reconsider his previous beliefs. However, not everyone experienced such a transformation. Sam later shared that 2 of his online friends had tragically taken their own lives, with Bill believing that many individuals within these communities were struggling with mental health challenges. In reflecting on his time on iFunny, Sam noted how the platform once had an intellectual element that made it more engaging. There had been serious and thoughtful individuals with whom he could engage in debates on various ideologies. Over time, however, most of these individuals left, and the platform's atmosphere shifted to one that was largely shaped by meme culture. Other relationships. As a member of a controversial online community, Sam became closer to individuals who shared extreme political views. He often made exaggerated claims about his personal life, presenting himself in a certain way to fit into the group's narrative. His community accepted these claims without question. Sam and many of his peers struggled with feelings of isolation and frustration. He often spoke about social dynamics in a way that reflected his discontent, expressing his thoughts on relationships and identity. Despite his rhetoric, there was an underlying contradiction between the way he discussed social roles and the way he lived his life. Within private chats, members would often discuss their personal frustrations. Sam, for instance, shared a story about a past experience that he believed shaped his view on relationships. Many in these circles voiced similar grievances about their personal lives, reflecting broader feelings of disconnection and frustration. The group's discussions frequently centered around societal issues, but at the core, there was a deep desire for belonging and validation. While they found a sense of community, the real challenge for many remained in addressing their deeper personal and emotional struggles. Sam and Kruuz. Kruuz, a former member of a far-right extremist group, worked in construction in Texas, which helped him maintain his physical fitness. Despite his tough demeanor and strained relationship with his family, he occasionally showed vulnerability, struggling with feelings of abandonment after being distanced from them. At one point, he reached out to a fellow group member, Zyklon, seeking a place to stay and viewing him as a kind of surrogate family. By 2017, Kruuz and his associate Sam had initially connected with Vanguard America, but soon became disillusioned with the group, feeling it did not align with their more radical views. Kruuz eventually found Atomwaffen through Twitter, where its leader, Brandon Russell, promoted a controversial book titled Siege by James Mason. The book's ideas about violent acts independent of centralized leadership appealed to Kruuz and Sam, leading them to embrace the group's ideology. However, internal conflicts within Atomwaffen, such as a disagreement between Russell and a member named Devin Arthurs, posed a challenge to the group's cohesion. Sam Woodward reconnects with Blaze Bernstein. In the midst of a chaotic time, Blaze's life took an unexpected turn when he crossed paths with Sam. Sam, who had once made remarks about Blaze's appearance due to his Jewish heritage, reconnected with him on Tinder in June 2017. Blaze, freshly out of a relationship and looking for someone to talk to, was immediately drawn to Sam's simple but intriguing profile, which featured a striking photo. Blaze was a talented writer with a deep appreciation for the supernatural, known for his calm demeanor and intellect. His friends described him as confident in his sexuality, but mindful of how others perceived him. He didn't feel the need to constantly define himself by it, though it was undeniably a part of who he was. His connection with Sam marked a significant moment in his life that would eventually take a tragic turn. While browsing a dating app, Blaze stumbled upon Samuel Woodward's profile and was intrigued. They quickly matched, and within half an hour, Blaze shared a screenshot of Sam's profile with his friend Alex, finding it amusing and validating their suspicions. Sam's profile reflected his usual bold personality, with humorous references to his dating preferences. including a mention of seeking an outdoorsy man for deer hunting, which struck Blaze as both ironic and entertaining. As their conversation unfolded, Blaze noticed a shift in tone. Sam's responses began to suggest flirtation, which Blaze playfully noted in his chats with Alex. He found it amusing to share screenshots of their exchanges, particularly as Sam's gradually more open flirtation became evident. Sam eventually admitted that he found Blaze attractive, a revelation that Blaze found both validating and amusing. This interaction revealed a more complex side of Sam, mixing his outward bravado with moments of vulnerability that came through in their private conversations. Meanwhile, the political climate outside their conversation was becoming more tense and unpredictable. The week had been marked by several significant incidents, including a tragic shooting in Kentucky, the arrest of an individual for mailing harmful devices, and a violent attack on a place of worship in Pittsburgh. These events created a somber backdrop to Blaze's discovery of Sam's profile, adding a layer of complexity to their personal interactions amid a broader atmosphere of increasing social tension. For some individuals with extreme views, these times of turmoil were seen as an opportunity to push their ideologies forward. Inspired by certain radical figures, they viewed each incident as a step closer to a societal breakdown, reinforcing their disruptive goals. Blaze's conversation with Sam, set against this charged environment, revealed deeper layers to their seemingly casual interaction. Blaze, a talented writer with an interest in the supernatural, was known for his calm demeanor and intelligence. His friends often described him as self-assured in his sexuality, though he was also sensitive to how others might perceive him. He didn't feel the need to make his sexuality the focal point of his identity, though it was an undeniable part of who he was. His relationship with Sam marked a pivotal moment in his life, one that would eventually lead to unforeseen consequences. Blaze Bernstein, browsing through a dating app, recognized Samuel Woodward's profile and was immediately intrigued. After swiping right, they matched within half an hour. Excited by the unexpected connection, Blaze shared a screenshot of Sam's profile with his friend Alex, noting the surprising revelation that confirmed their suspicions about Sam. Blaze found amusement in Sam's profile, which exuded his usual confident persona. It included bold statements about his romantic preferences, mentioning his attraction to black women and his recent experiences, along with a humorous note about seeking an outdoorsy man for deer hunting. The contrast between Sam's bravado and his app profile struck Blaze as both ironic and entertaining. As their conversation continued, the tone began to shift, with Sam's responses taking on a more flirtatious undertone. Blaze, amused by the dynamic, kept updating Alex with screenshots, enjoying the situation. Sam's eventual admission of attraction toward Blaze surprised him, offering a glimpse into a more personal side of Sam that contrasted with his outward confidence. Eventually, Sam openly confessed his attraction to Blaze, a revelation that both entertained and validated Blaze. The conversation highlighted the complexities of Sam's character, blending his outward bravado with a more vulnerable personal side that emerged in their private exchanges. The role of James Nolan Mason. Mason, despite advising revolutionaries to be wary of politicians, showed some support for Trump's presidency, viewing him as a leader whose actions resonated with their broader aims. James Mason, born on July 25, 1952, is often associated with extremist ideologies in the United States. He is known for his connections to Charles Manson and for his involvement with extremist groups, such as Atomwaffen division, which has been linked to violent rhetoric within white nationalist movements. After the failure of large-scale extremist movements, Mason shifted his focus to promoting violent ideologies, advocating for radical change through acts of terror. Known for his influence in far-right extremist circles, his actions have inspired a number of individuals to follow similar paths of violence. Mason's criminal history includes serious charges such as assault, weapons-related offenses, and allegations of inappropriate conduct involving minors. In 2021, Canada included him on its list of individuals associated with terrorism, a designation given to only a small number of people. Mason's life and actions serve as a stark reminder of the destructive power of extremist beliefs and the ongoing threat posed by such ideologies. Mason's work, especially his book Siege, has found renewed interest in certain online communities, where individuals who were disillusioned with mainstream ideologies have connected with his views. Mason, a former security guard, utilized the internet as a platform to share his work and promote his ideas, gaining attention from those seeking alternative perspectives. The frustrations of certain young men involved in extreme ideologies were evident in the online conversations within groups like Atomwaffen. Many members expressed dissatisfaction with societal norms, and some, including their leader John Cameron Denton, voiced feelings of isolation and difficulty connecting with others. Their discussions frequently centered around issues of masculinity, at times veering into disturbing territory with comments that included aggressive and inappropriate content. The group's ideology echoed that of figures like Mason, who, despite his past legal troubles, including charges related to misconduct, became a prominent influence within extremist circles. His controversial background did not prevent him from maintaining a position of influence among those in the far-right movement. Sam and his best friend, Kruuz. Sam's path towards extreme beliefs was a deeply personal experience. In 2017, he distanced himself from his parents, rejecting their Christian faith and the life they had envisioned for him in Newport Beach. Disillusioned, he spent the summer living in Texas with a friend named Kruuz. They moved between motels and shelters, facing challenges but committed to pursuing their own path. Eventually, Sam and Kruuz traveled to Colorado to meet Mason, whom Sam had admired for years. Meeting Mason felt like encountering a figure of great significance. Mason, who had long been influenced by controversial figures from history, welcomed them into his home, which was filled with items that reflected his personal beliefs and past influences. Mason had been deeply involved in these ideologies since his youth, dedicating his life to them for over 5 decades. Despite his years of loyalty, Mason never achieved the legendary status of those he admired. He also resisted adapting to modern trends, choosing to stick with traditional methods. While others embraced the internet to share their ideas, Mason continued to use a typewriter, mailing his messages the old-fashioned way. Sam looked up to Mason, seeing him as a man rich with stories and wisdom. For Sam, Mason symbolized the essence of the movement he was part of. While the internet is often thought to preserve everything, digital records can be as fleeting as mist. Mason once spoke about his past work, including a book titled Art That Kills, reflecting on his history with individuals he had photographed years earlier. He shared thoughts on his personal experiences and how they shaped his perspective. During a visit, Mason prepared breakfast for his guests, who were curious about his views on the past. In January, he recalled Sam as someone he respected. When asked about Sam now, Mason expressed regret, saying, "I wish you had come to me first. Things might have been different," before wishing him the best. Mason addressed the topic of political violence, stating that while he did not support such actions, he would have advised Sam to ensure that any such actions were well planned.
A lot of people take your words and they're acting violent based on your words.
If they were acting on my words, they wouldn't be doing the things they're doing, throwing their lives.
He expressed criticism of the synagogue shooting, saying the victims were not the appropriate targets, and suggested that younger individuals should have been the focus. By the fall of 2017, Sam had returned to his parents' home in Newport Beach and took a construction job, which he found fulfilling. Kruuz is right, he shared in the Atomwaffen chat. You spend real time among real men, being a real man. He also mentioned engaging in boxing with members of another far-right group. Later that year, Kruuz moved to Southern California and took on a leadership role within the regional Atomwaffen chapter, with Sam becoming his second in command. Sam expressed his desire to step away from traditional paths and save money for farming equipment. To achieve this goal, he took a job organizing bounce houses and Nerf battles at children's parties. Although he wasn't fond of working with affluent clients, one interaction with a woman and her biracial children stood out as particularly frustrating. Around this time, Sam maintained a diary, some excerpts of which were later presented in court. In these entries, he made negative remarks about certain individuals he met through dating apps, mocking them for trusting him. He described interactions with someone named Jared as a prank, recalling how much he enjoyed deceiving them. For Sam, engaging with people online and then ignoring them had become a routine part of his life. On January 2nd, 2018, shortly after midnight, Sam asked about a person named Kruuz in an online chat, expressing concern over their absence. Other members reassured him, noting that Kruuz often came and went unpredictable. Sam then spent hours talking about video games and marijuana with the group. Later that day, Sam matched with Ted, a former classmate, on Tinder. Ted recognized Sam but felt uncertain about how to respond. Having heard rumors about Sam in high school, Ted was aware of his tendency to isolate himself. While browsing Sam's profile, Ted saw images of him at a gun range and screenshots of complaints about his father's classical music taste. Ultimately, Ted chose not to reply. The day of, after all that had transpired, January 2nd, 2018, arrived. A day that would seem like any other. For 19-year-old Blaze Bernstein, a dedicated University of Pennsylvania student, it was supposed to be just another winter break. Returning home to the warmth of his family in Foothill Ranch, Blaze was looking forward to quality time with his loved ones before heading back to campus. However, no one could have predicted the devastating turn this break would take, leaving his family grasping for answers amid a heartbreaking and inexplicable tragedy. The evening started off normally, with a cozy family dinner filled with laughter and conversation. Blaze's mother, Jean Bernstein, recalled how her son appeared to be in good spirits, showing no signs of distress. On the evening of January 2nd, Blaze prepared a meal for his family, cleverly repurposing leftovers from the night before. His parents were pleased to see him thriving, noting his accomplishments in the university's prestigious Vagalos Molecular Sciences program and his recent role as managing editor of Pen Appetit. After dinner, Blaze's mother took his younger sister, Bewe, to a sleepover. That evening, Blaze and Sam reconnected online, with Sam offering to pick him up. Around 11 p.m., Sam arrived in Blaze's neighborhood, and Blaze left the house without his glasses or wallet. The two drove to a nearby shopping center and spent some time there, where an unfortunate event occurred. Later, Blaze decided to meet a high school friend at Borrego Park, just a 5-minute drive from his family's home in Foothill Ranch. At 9:30 p.m., he shared his family's address to arrange a pickup. By 10:30 p.m., they arrived at the park, where Blaze got out of the car and walked into the darkness to meet someone else, a third individual whose identity remains unknown. His friend waited in the car, texting Blaze when he didn't return, but there was no response. By 11:30 p.m., Blaze's phone was turned off, and the location tracker was no longer working. His friend, still confused, eventually left the park. The next morning, Jean's concern grew when Blaze missed a scheduled dental appointment. It was unlike him to forget something so important. Blaze was known for being organized, reliable, and detail-oriented. When he didn't show up for that appointment, Jean later recalled, "I knew something was seriously wrong." As the hours passed with no word from Blaze, panic set in. His phone calls went unanswered, and his friends had no idea where he was. The uncertainty weighed heavily on his parents, and Jean, feeling desperate for answers, described the situation as baffling. "This is not a kid who just wanders off into the dark," she insisted. "He's brilliant, he's a chemist, and he's meticulous. Someone like that doesn't just vanish without a trace." The last known location of Blaze was traced to Borrego Park in the Whiting Ranch Wilderness area, where he had reportedly been with his friend. Search and rescue teams from the Orange County Sheriff's Department scoured the dense park trails, the crisp January air carrying the echoes of their calls. Dogs sniffed for traces, and volunteers combed through the rugged terrain, but their efforts turned up nothing. As days passed, the worry within the Bernstein family grew into an overwhelming sense of uncertainty. Their once vibrant home, filled with Blaze's laughter, now felt eerily silent. Jean's heartbreak was apparent as she spoke to reporters, her voice filled with a mix of grief and resolve. The search efforts in Borrego Park yielded no clues about Blaze's whereabouts. The vast wilderness offered no answers, only adding to the mystery. What had happened to this brilliant, kind-hearted young man? Why had he disappeared without a trace? And, most hauntingly, where was he now? For the Bernstein family, each day without answers felt like an eternity. While the authorities paused their search, Jean refused to give up. Her relentless love for her son motivated her to continue searching for the truth, holding on to hope that one day Blaze would return home. The disappearance captured the attention of the community and news outlets, with Blaze being described as the Ivy League pre-med student missing under mysterious circumstances. The state was shaken, as speculation about his fate grew. Police, supported by canines and helicopters, searched the area but found no evidence of his presence. Lieutenant Brad Valentine from the Orange County Sheriff's Department addressed the media, sharing the department's ongoing effort to find any clue, whether a piece of clothing or any sign, that could lead to Blaze. Authorities held on to the hope that he might simply be in need of medical attention. As time passed, Blaze's parents expanded their search efforts, hiring private drone operators to cover more ground. They also created a Facebook group to raise awareness, determined to reach as many people as possible in their relentless search for their son. On the crisp morning of Thursday, January 4th, Sheriff's investigator Dylan Johnson walked through Borrego Park, carefully examining the details of an unusual case. As he surveyed the area, he noticed a young man named Sam Woodward nearby. Their conversation started casually, with Sam sharing that he had met Blaze Bernstein, a local college student. Sam mentioned an interaction where Blaze, which, according to Sam, had caused discomfort. Blaze apologized, but the situation seemed to have left an impression. Sam revealed that he had personal reservations about same but also expressed a complicated curiosity about such experiences. As they continued walking, Sam recounted the route he believed he had taken while looking for Blaze in the early hours of the morning. Not far off, hidden among the trees, Blaze's body remained undiscovered, awaiting the investigation's next steps. Several days later, a cold front moved through Southern California, bringing rain that uncovered hidden secrets. In Borrego Park, a body was discovered in a shallow grave. The individual had sustained multiple stab wounds to the neck, along with other injuries to the face and knee. Investigators observed dirt under Sam's fingernails and scratches on his arms, which Sam attributed to a fall and a past altercation. Meanwhile, in Newport Beach, Sam did not dispose of the weapon, a folding knife. Instead, he kept it in his room, the blade marked by blood and engraved with his father's name. According to news channels, the events of that night began in the parking lot of a Hobby Lobby. After picking Blaze up, Sam and Blaze sat in the car. At 11:36 p.m., Blaze sent a text to his friend Lily. "You'll never believe what's going on." Those would be some of his final words. For Lily, Blaze was more than a friend. They had begun bonding way back in a creative writing class. Though she once had a huge crush on him, their friendship grew over shared humor and artistic tastes. She remembers Blaze's sharp wit and honesty. He was very real and straightforward. Another friend, Alex, recalled, "He stuck to the people he cared about, and everyone else he could be kind of mean to. But that's what made him Blaze." Jean Bernstein, Blaze's mother, reflected on the pieces of her son's life she had only come to understand in hindsight. While Blaze had never explicitly discussed his sexuality with his parents, Jean knew in her heart. The aftermath in 2018. Blaze's family, on the other hand, was left to grapple with their loss, recounting the vivid, hopeful life he embodied. A student journalist for Pen Appetit, Blaze had a passion for cooking and an unshakable determination to achieve his dreams. His final moments, cooking a meal for his family, chatting excitedly about his plans, just shows that he was a young man with a bright future ahead. Blaze's family mourned him in their own way, creating a memorial fund and starting the See and Blaze It Forward movement. Their home became a shrine of memories, photos, collages, and messages of support from across the nation. The family dog, oblivious to the tragedy, darted around visitors' feet. Some people on the internet found the behavior of Blaze's parents eerily calm and composed, but that's something one would discuss in a psychology class. The details of that night remain unclear, and the authorities were actively working to identify the person responsible as quickly as possible. Investigators suspect that Blaze may have known the individual involved, reassuring the public that this was not a random act of violence. The discovery of his body led authorities to a home in Newport Beach, where deputies conducted a search on the morning of January 10th. The findings from this search brought investigators closer to solving the case. As the investigation progressed, Sam's digital activity provided insight into his actions and mindset in the days following the incident. His continued involvement in online forums, such as Atomwaffen, was noted after the tragic event. On January 5th, just days after the incident, Sam posted an unusually emotional message to his online peers. "I just wanted to let you all know I love you so much." The murder of Blaze Bernstein left even those who knew Sam stunned. His associates from the Atomwaffen group learned about the tragedy in the same way as everyone else, through the news. Some of his closest peers reacted with shock, confusion, and, in some cases, a troubling sense of admiration for what they saw as a spontaneous act of violence. However, for others, the incident raised deeper questions. What led Sam Woodward to take Blaze Bernstein's life? Was it fueled by anger, fear, or something else hidden beneath the surface? Perhaps, as one of his online associates suggested, some people just snap. The final goodbyes. Hundreds gathered to honor Blaze Bernstein at a memorial service held at the University Synagogue in Irvine. Nearly 1,000 friends, family, and former classmates attended the private event. A heartfelt video montage was shown, accompanied by emotional speeches from loved ones. The funeral service for Blaze Bernstein took place on a quiet Monday, January 15, 2018, a private gathering for family and close friends to honor his memory. The ceremony was filled with love and remembrance, reflecting the kind-hearted and creative spirit Blaze had shared with those around him. Blaze's love for cooking was celebrated in a special way. Attendees were given spatulas engraved with the last recipe he had created. This simple gesture highlighted Blaze's creativity in the kitchen and his passion for making people feel special through food. Those who had known Blaze remembered him as a talented writer, a passionate chef, and a selfless volunteer. His warmth and kindness were shared in quiet stories, each person adding to the picture of a young man who had made a difference in every life he touched. Though the service had been closed to the public and cameras, the Bernstein family made it clear that Blaze's memory would live on in acts of kindness. They encouraged everyone to honor Blaze by doing good deeds in his name, spreading the same kindness he had shown throughout his life. While the service had been private, a public memorial was planned for the future. In the meantime, the family had created a website and a memorial fund to celebrate Blaze's life and ensure his spirit continued to inspire others. His mother also honored her son at the Segerstrom Center for the Arts, sharing cherished memories of him and expressing a hope for a world where safety and kindness prevail. She wished for a future where no more families have to endure the pain of losing a loved one to acts of hate, especially in a country that prides itself on being progressive and developed. The trial, 7 years later, almost 7 years later, the moment had finally arrived for Blaze Bernstein's case to receive the attention it deserved.
Slow justice is no justice. It's not fair to victims, and it's not fair to the deceased.
The legal proceedings had taken longer than expected, marked by delays and challenges, causing frustration and concern throughout Southern California. In 2018, the local community united in their efforts to search for Blaze after his sudden disappearance, reflecting the profound impact the case had on everyone involved. The name Samuel Woodward has come up in the news once again, as he is linked to the case involving the death of Blaze. Woodward had a troubling history of engaging with individuals online, particularly targeting gay men. He would make initial contact only to suddenly sever communication, all while keeping a journal filled with disturbing and negative language. Investigators have uncovered evidence suggesting that Woodward harbored harmful thoughts and had a concerning fixation on violence. When police searched Woodward's family home in Newport Beach, they discovered some concerning items. These included a black mask associated with extremist groups, a folding knife with blood on the blade, and various materials promoting hateful ideologies, including anti-gay and anti-Semitic content. The evidence indicated that Woodward's radical beliefs played a significant role in the crime. The Orange County District Attorney, Tony Rakakis, made it official. Woodward would face a homicide charge, with additional charges for hate crimes. The fact that Blaze was targeted because of his sexuality made the case even more heartbreaking. As more details about Woodward's actions surfaced, public outrage continued to grow. Woodward's arraignment was postponed multiple times, which only added to the pain and frustration for Blaze's family and friends. He remained in jail without bail, facing serious charges. After the prolonged delays, everyone was eager for justice to be served. Blaze's case wasn't just about one tragic event. It highlighted the destructive power of extremist beliefs and how hate can have devastating consequences. Samuel Woodward's testimony in his own words, with his overgrown fingernails, unkempt hair, barely coherent sentences, and cameras not being allowed inside the courtroom, most of Sam Woodward's testimony is an unpleasant watch. With short answers and an uncompromising attitude, it's as if he was there to test everyone's patience.
I can't recall that I was in almost all or most instances. I really can't believe, or rather, I can't remember that there ever was an instance except for no.
Woodward's testimony began by describing how the two had reconnected on Snapchat after years of estrangement since their high school days. Their conversations led to Woodward suggesting a meetup, to which Blaze agreed, sharing his home address. Woodward picked him up and drove to Borrego Park, a quiet location near their community. Woodward had come prepared for a casual evening. He brought a sleeping bag, snacks, drinks, and a potent strain of marijuana. In the dimly lit park, he sat and reflected, feeling the effects of a substance that left him disoriented and somewhat self-conscious. While it helped him relax, it also heightened his awareness of how others might perceive him. As time passed, Woodward, who had been diagnosed with autism, spoke about his ongoing challenges with building connections and navigating social situations. His attorney frequently reminded him to make eye contact and engage with the courtroom. Despite his awkward demeanor, he continued his testimony, his words revealing increasing tension that seemed to be building within him. Woodward described a moment when he was lying down in the park and felt something unusual on his leg. Initially confused, he wondered if something had happened, but when he looked down, he realized his pants were unbuckled and Blaze's hand was resting on his thigh. Blaze was holding a phone in his other hand, and Woodward's attention shifted to what the phone might be capturing. Feeling overwhelmed, Woodward testified that Blaze tried to reassure him with words like "calm down" and "it's not a big deal," but these only seemed to amplify his growing anxiety. He recalled Blaze saying things like "I got you" and calling him a hypocrite, which deepened his fear that Blaze might expose him to his family and community. The thought of his father's reaction was particularly distressing, and he became consumed with dread. Woodward claimed Blaze continued to interact with his phone, typing messages or taking photos. Woodward's fear gradually turned to anger, an emotion he described as overwhelming. "I lost it," he said. "I couldn't control myself." In the chaos, he reached for a knife he carried for work, and, in the darkness, began to act impulsively. As he described the struggle, he spoke of yelling, grappling for the phone, and ultimately stabbing repeatedly. His testimony became fragmented as he struggled to express how the situation escalated to the point where his actions turned fatal. "I just kept going," he said after a long pause. Woodward described the aftermath with a sense of both shock and emotional numbness. In a state of panic, he damaged Blaze's phone and, in a disoriented state, dug a shallow grave with his bare hands. He then moved Blaze's body to the hole and buried it. As the weight of his actions began to settle on him, he struggled to make sense of what had happened, though he explained that fear and confusion clouded his thoughts. Throughout his testimony, Woodward denied any animosity toward Blaze due to his sexuality or any connection to extremist groups. He maintained that the incident was not planned and that he did not intend to harm Blaze when they first met that evening. When his attorney asked if Blaze had been friendly toward him, Woodward paused before answering, "Somewhat, I think so." When asked if he had felt any satisfaction when Blaze agreed to meet him, he quietly responded, "Yeah." While Sam's defense claimed that his actions were driven by panic and fear, the prosecution presented a contrasting view, asserting that the attack was a deliberate act of violence motivated by deeply rooted prejudice. Blaze Bernstein was not the only victim. Between 2017 and early 2018, 5 deaths were connected to the Atomwaffen division, a violent extremist group. Devin Arthurs. In May 2017, 18-year-old Devin Arthurs was accused of killing 2 of his roommates in their Tampa, Florida apartment. After the incident, he entered a nearby smoke shop and briefly held people at gunpoint before surrendering to the authorities. During questioning, Arthurs revealed that his victims were members of a far-right extremist group, which he had recently distanced himself from. He claimed they were planning violent attacks, including bombings of power lines, synagogues, and a nuclear facility. Further investigation led to the discovery of bomb-making materials in the garage, which were linked to a 4th roommate, Brandon Russell, the founder of the group. Russell was later sentenced to 5 years in prison for explosives possession. Mental health concerns played a significant role in Arthurs' case. In 2018, he was determined to be unfit to stand trial and was sent to a state hospital. By 2019, some doctors concluded he was fit for trial, though others disagreed. As of mid-2019, he was awaiting a hearing on his competency, facing charges of first-degree murder, kidnapping, and aggravated aggravated assault, Nick Giampa. In December 2017, a tragic incident occurred in Reston, Virginia, where 17-year-old Nick Giampa was accused of taking the lives of Buckley Kuhn Fricker and Scott Fricker, the parents of his former girlfriend. Giampa reportedly entered the home, assailed the couple, and then attempted to end his life. He survived, but suffered brain damage. The tragic events took place shortly after the Kuhn Fricker family confronted their daughter about Giampa's controversial beliefs, which had been posted on his social media accounts. Giampa had shared extremist racially discriminatory content and expressed admiration for a violent group. The family encouraged their daughter to end the relationship, which likely led to the incident. Initially deemed unfit to stand trial due to his injuries, Giampa spent several months in a mental health facility. In May 2019, a judge declared him competent, and a preliminary hearing was scheduled for late July. Giampa faced 2 homicide charges and was being tried as a juvenile. Returning to the case of Blaze Bernstein, his parents have continually encouraged others to engage in acts of kindness in his memory as they carry on living in a way that honors his legacy. Meanwhile, Samuel Woodward, 27, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole on November 15, 2024, for the first-degree murder of Bernstein in 2018. The conviction also included a hate crime enhancement, recognizing that Bernstein was targeted due to his sexual preference.